Hello and welcome to this edition of Consciousness Raising Online. And as soon as I make sure everything is copacetic, we're going to jump right into this because this is not an easy session. I'm doing this because it has to be done. It has to be done. Even though there's a lot of other things going on in the world, one of the things that I said why I would do this is because just doing some preliminary research, I saw how many black women have been killed by the police. Now, we've been focused for a while on Breonna Taylor, and that's important, but I gotta share with you some of the many black women and even a little girl that have been killed by the police. So this is going to be a very difficult session for me, and it may be even difficult for you, but hopefully you'll be able to ride through it with me. Trust me, you are probably going to be upset at different moments when you hear some of the details, because they're enough to make you go off, be angry, be upset. But we need to be able to say their names and never forget them. And I have to start out with the black woman that I remember this. I recall this very vividly, even though it happened in 1984. This is back when they really weren't paying too much attention to police shootings. And we didn't have, back then we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the internet and social media. In fact, we didn't even have think about it. In 84, we didn't even have all news stations, CNN, and stuff like that. So ELEANOR Bumpurs, she was 66 years old. This happened in New York in 1984. ELEANOR Bumpurs was killed inside her Bronx apartment by the New York Police Department, who had arrived to enforce a city-ordered eviction. And when she refused to open the door, the police forced entry into her home. Once entering the apartment, police attempted to physically subdue her. And when she resisted, officers shot her twice with a 12-gauge shotgun. ELEANOR Bumpurs. Next, I want to talk about Michelle CUSSEAUX. I hope I'm saying her name correctly. It's either CUSSEAUX or CUSSEAUX. This was 2014 in Phoenix, Arizona. She was 50 years old. Police were called to assist Michelle when she was experiencing a mental health crisis at home. Now, understand this. They were called to assist Michelle. Okay? They weren't called to kill her. Right? Alone and scared, Michelle refused to let them into her home. Sergeant Percy Durpa pried open the locked security door, where he saw Michelle through a screen holding a hammer. Durpa, claiming that he felt threatened by the look on her face, shot her in the heart within seconds. Trust me, it gets worse. Believe it or not, it gets worse. Okay. Don't pay attention to that. There's somebody calling me that doesn't realize I'm busy. Now here, this one is actually 3 different situations. And I'm going to go through each one, and then I'm going to show you their pictures. Okay? The first one, this was May 13th, 2019. Pamela Turner, a 45-year-old grandmother of 3, was shot and killed in Baytown, Texas, after an officer tried to arrest her for having outstanding warrants that later were shown to not even existed. Disturbing video shows Turner's last moments as she lay on the ground and yelled, "I'm pregnant," before she was shot and killed. And I tried to track this down as far as I can find. The officer was not charged with anything. But understand, remember what I just said up there? Tried to arrest her for having outstanding warrants that later were shown to not even exist. 45 years old. Pamela Turner. The next one, October 2019. A Fort Worth police officer shot 28-year-old Tatiana Jefferson in her own home. Called to do a wellness check, he shot his gun through her bedroom window and killed her within 4 seconds of arriving. And I recall this, and you probably do too, because we saw video where the police came to her front door, which was open. There was a screen door, but the door itself was open, wide open. And he went around the back of the house. And apparently she heard, he was back there with a flashlight. And she either heard or saw the flashlight, came to the window, because she was there playing video games with her 8-year-old nephew. And this police shot within 4 seconds of getting there. Okay? Again, no charges filed. Killed that woman. Third one is, this goes back to September 1st, 2016. Corinne Gaines was killed by police in Maryland on Facebook Live. A standoff ended with Gaines, 23, being shot dead by 5 bullets, and her 5-year-old son being shot in the face. Gaines recorded the encounter on Facebook Live. Her family was later awarded $37 million. But it didn't bring her back. Now let me show you the pictures. This first one, this is Pamela Turner. Okay. This is a Tatiana Jefferson, the one who was shot through the window. She was, when the police got there and shot her within 4 seconds of getting there. And this is Corinne Gaines, and that's her son that got shot in the face. Okay? Yeah, you think it can't get worse, right? All right, here is TANISHA Anderson. Now, TANISHA Anderson, this was in 2014 in Cleveland, Ohio. 27 years old. Police were called to help during a non-violent mental health crisis at TANISHA's home. After escalating the situation, police attempted to arrest TANISHA. When she panicked and tried exiting the police vehicle, so apparently they had her in the police car, police jumped on her. And one officer kneeled on TANISHA's back, eventually killing her. TANISHA's family was held at gunpoint as TANISHA lay dying on the ground, calling for their help. Her body was left exposed on the cold ground. Deborah Danner. This is 2016. This is in the Bronx, New York, 66 years old. Listen to this. Deborah Danner, who was diagnosed with schizophrenia, was fatally shot by police in her home. Police were called to her home after a neighbor called 911 reporting erratic behavior. Despite knowing Deborah's condition and carrying a taser, police shot her twice in the chest when they arrived at her home. Police claimed they saw her holding a pair of scissors and baseball bat, but according to the EMT, she never picked up a bat. Lord help us. And I hate to be, you can't be unemotional about this, because if you are, then you're not alive. SHEREESE Francis. This is March 15, 2012 in Queens, New York. She was 30 years old. Listen to this. SHEREESE's sister called 911 for medical assistance when SHEREESE, who was diagnosed with schizophrenia, became increasingly distraught after a fight with her mother. 4 police officers responded to the call and chased SHEREESE throughout her house, ultimately cornering her in a basement bedroom. The 4 officers physically overpowered SHEREESE, forcing her face down on the ground. Within minutes, she had suffocated to death. Can you imagine 4 police officers running through the house chasing her? That's insanity. Not even her, that's their insanity. All right. Now, here's one that you probably do recall too. A couple of things. In the first one, Miriam Carey, and I recall this like it was yesterday. October 3rd, 2013. Miriam Carey was a 34-year-old dental hygienist. She was driving in Washington, D.C. with her 1-year-old child in the car when she reached a security checkpoint. It was somewhere near the Capitol. Instead of stopping, she made a U-turn to go back the other way, and police began to follow her. In fact, they chased her, and there was video of her trying to get away from them. They were chasing her around and around. They had shot at her already. Now, when she finally stopped, she was shot several times, including in the back and in the head, with her 1-year-old daughter still in the car. And this is what got me. She wasn't armed. She didn't do anything to anybody. She accidentally, apparently, drove up to a checkpoint and wasn't trying to go in the place, and turned around and tried to leave and ended up dead. This next one I recall as well, because this happened in my hometown in Chicago, March 22nd, 2012. And I'm going to show you both of their pictures in a minute. Rakia Boyd was 22 years old. She was walking with friends in Chicago, and when an off-duty officer approached them and asked them to keep the noise down. Now, after some words were exchanged, the group walked away. The officer looked back and claimed he saw a boy pull out a gun and began to shoot at the group. Rakia Boyd was shot in the back of the head. It turned out the so-called gun the officer saw was actually a cell phone. And let me share something with you about this incident. It says that they were walking with friends. She was walking with friends, and the officer approached them. In actuality, he was in his car. He said, now he was off duty. He claimed he was just going out to go to the store. So he's in his car. And Rakia and her friends are standing there talking on the sidewalk. Well, he never got out of the car. He's in his car and he tells them to keep the noise down. And so, the young bucks, they jog back and forth with him. And then they went to walk away. And that's supposedly when the young brother pulled out his cell phone. He might have been pulling it out to record the event. I don't know. But the dude, the police, the off-duty police, he's sitting in his car. He pulls his gun and fires into the crowd of these young people from his car. In fact, he reached around his shoulder and shot, over his shoulder, and shot Rakia Boyd in the back of the head. Now, they actually charged him with, I think it was manslaughter. And he was either charged with homicide or manslaughter with a bench trial. And that judge found him not guilty so quick it wasn't funny. In fact, what he claimed was that they had charged him with the wrong crime. But it was just the idea that they charged him and then had the audacity that the judge threw that out. Okay? All right, let me show you. This is Miriam Carey, the young sister who was the dental hygienist who had her 1-year-old in the car and accidentally drove up to a security checkpoint. Now, after they killed her, they tried to smear her by saying she had mental issues and stuff, and that she had supposedly drove from New York to D.C. On some kind of, it never was made clear, but they tried to make her seem like she was crazy. But even if she was having mental issues, that did not mean that she should end up shot to death. And I'll never forget when I first saw this photograph of her, I said, look at that smile. Look at that smile on that sister. Now, she might have had some mental health issues. I don't know, but I know this. When I look at that face and that smile, and she had a 1-year-old child, I just cannot see her doing anything that could be threatening to the police. And remember, she didn't have a gun. She had no weapon. There's things that happen that just don't make no sense. Okay. Here's India KAGER. This happened in 2015, Virginia Beach, Virginia, to 27 years old. India was shot and killed by Virginia Beach police while holding her baby in a 7-Eleven parking lot. Officers fired 30-plus rounds into her car. Did you hear that? Killing India and Angelo Perry within seconds and disabling their 4-month-old son, Roman. Police did not have arrest warrants for anyone involved. And after killing her, police pulled India's body out of the car and left her body on the cold ground overnight. Here's CHARLEENA LYLES. This was 2017 in Seattle, Washington, 30 years old. CHARLEENA LYLES was killed in her home by Seattle police after she called 911 to report a burglary. Understand, she called the police to report a burglary. Although police knew of CHARLEENA's mental health diagnosis, they did nothing to de-escalate the situation when CHARLEENA brandished a knife upon their arrival. CHARLEENA's 3 children were home when the shooting occurred, and she was pregnant with her 4th. And they never did explain, because I went and did some research on this, because she called the police to report a burglary. So they knew, well, first of all, they said they knew she had a mental health situation, but also they knew she had called to report a burglary. So if she had a knife, she had the knife for self-defense against what she felt was a burglar. So what happened to that? By the way, if you notice, a lot of these cases with black women, there's a claim that they had mental health issues, which of course made it even easier for them to claim, well, she was crazy, so we killed her. Here's Morgan London Rankins. This is 2017 in Austin, Texas, 30 years old. Morgan, who was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, was shot and killed by Austin police officer Benjamin Rogers after a car chase in which he claims she attempted to hit him with her car. Rogers alleged that he shot Morgan because she emerged from her car with a knife. However, transcripts indicate that he pulled his gun on Morgan before she left her car. Morgan was a cancer survivor and had recently graduated summa cum laude from Houston-Tillotson University, where she majored in psychology. Whew, can you imagine her family? Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's depressing almost, but here's Michelle Shirley, 2016, Torrance, California. She was 39 years old. Michelle was shot and killed by Torrance police officers responding to her erratic and reckless driving. After a brief pursuit ended at a Chevron gas station, officers shot Michelle multiple times through her car window. According to her mother, Michelle, a mother and aspiring lawyer, had been in the grips of a bipolar episode during the incident, which sometimes manifested as delusions. And of course, that was all the police needed to be able to claim afterwards, was that, well, she acted crazy, so we shot her. Okay, no weapon. She didn't have no weapon. In this case, they said, well, she was using the car as a weapon. All right, now let me move on to these last two. And I included the 7-year-old black girl because she was killed by the police. This is 2010, May 16, 2010. 7-year-old Ayanna Stanley Jones was asleep when Detroit police raided her family's apartment with a television camera crew looking for a murder suspect. Officers began shooting upon entrance and struck Jones, who was sleeping on the couch in the living room. And then it turns out two things. One was that the person they were supposedly looking for lived upstairs. Those police was trigger happy anyway. Killed that little girl, and then tried to cover it up, and then tried to say she had attacked them. Nobody went to jail. Okay. Police have fatally shot 247 women since 2015. Of that number, 48 were black women. The last one, of course, I have to mention her because she's the one that has upset us the most over the past year. Breonna Taylor, 26-year-old woman, was fatally shot in her Louisville, Kentucky apartment on March 13, 2020. When Jonathan Mattingly, Britt Hankinson, and Miles Cosgrove of the Louisville Metro Police Department executed a search warrant as part of an investigation into drug dealing and shot and killed her. Shot her 6 times. And the only person that got indicted was Brett Hankinson, who they fired right afterwards. He was supposedly shot in the leg by Breonna's boyfriend, who had a carry concealed. He had a permit. and he supposedly shot the police in the leg, and then they claim that's why they shot into the apartment. But Brett Hankinson was indicted shooting Breonna Taylor, but the city paid the family $12 million. It's the most outrageous thing that's happened so far this year with this case. And let me show you both their pictures as we close. Here's Aiyana Stanley Jones, 7 years old. Whew. And like I say, I recall when this happened. Hurt me to my heart. Okay? And here is Breonna Taylor. There's not a lot left to say at this point because I simply tried to share with you their names, a little bit about what happened to them, and show you their faces. And so we don't forget. There's no happiness in this piece here, but I wanted to make sure that we gave honor to these sisters. And for those who may run across somebody who doesn't believe that the police kill us, both men and women, indiscriminately, you can just send them this link. And that'll tell you everything you need to know. As always, I close with no justice, no peace, no love. KNOW.